State, go Bucks. Ohio, I saw that. Yeah, okay, these are going really fast. I'm trying to keep up here. Hold on. Philly, Philly. So Samir and I were just talking. I was raised in Cherry Hill. I am a Philly guy through and through. I love to see it. California, Charlotte, OHIO. Let's go Bucks. You can argue with me any day of the week, but Ohio State has the best football team in the world. Let's go Buckeyes. Go Eagles. I saw that in there too. Florida. All right, I'm trying to read all these, but they're just flying by. All right, guys, we are super pumped for today. Let's see. Chicago, Denver. We all can see Canada. Let's see. East Bay, LA. Wow, we got a good amount of people on here today. So, guys, my name is Drew Thompson. I am the head coach and head of Real Academy. All that means, so my name is Drew Thompson. I am the head coach and head of Real Academy here at Real. All that means is my singular focus is to give you the best tactics, strategies, tips you need to succeed. It's literally my obsession. How can I help you win in today's market? Now, a little bit more about me. On the back end, I was a real estate agent, just like Sharon. We have been in the trenches with you, right? We know what it's like to go hand to hand, to do combat. Because if we do not hunt, we do not eat, right? If we don't hunt, we don't eat. We get that 150%. So here's what I want to start off today with is that I think everything that we have prepared for you today is going to change your life and your business. It's going to change your business. It's going to change your life. Now, I know you're thinking that's a huge thing for me to say to kick everything off, but let me tell you why. So I think today is going to change your business. Why? Because Sharon and the team have been putting things together that can that bring in all of the tools, tactics, strategies, frameworks, everything you need to execute quickly in today's market and to feel confident, to future-proof your business. So that's going to change your business. I fully believe that. Now, why do I think that today is going to change your life? Because everything that we do here and everything that we've put together for you right now is aimed at helping you become a fiduciary to your client and strengthen you becoming a fiduciary to the clients that you serve. You see, when you start with a heart of service, you lose commission breath. You lose, oh my God, I've got to finish this. I've got to get this deal or I'm not going to be able to make ends meet. You lose that. You lean into, you know what? How can I serve the other person today? How can I make their life a little bit better in what is possibly the biggest transaction of their life? So I want you guys to do me a favor. Get a pen and paper, or if you have a remarkable, get a remarkable, because today, guys, it's going to be like drinking from a fire hose. Now, we put something, and I see you guys, Boston, Carmel, these are still coming in. We have Glendale, Arizona. Guys, thank you so much for putting that in here. Get a pen and paper, or if you have a printer, or if you have an iPad, we put together a workbook for you. We're going to drop that in the chat here. If we can pin that to the chat for everybody. I have one ask, if you will, if I can ask one thing of you, it's going to be like drinking from a fire hose today. There's going to be so much, but I want you to promise me, everybody on this call, promise me one thing. You will take one thing, one simple framework or tactic, or if it's just how Sharon says something, or if it's the fact that I'm always over caffeinated, take my energy, take what you learned today and implement it into your business. Get into massive action. The second you get off this workshop, massive action. If you can do me a favor, if you can promise me that you'll do that and you're excited to get massive action today to future-proof your business, drop a yes in the chat for me. Can you drop a yes in the chat? And there's so many of them. I think you guys are ready for this. So without further ado, guys, it is my honor to introduce you to my friend, partner, and the president of Real, Sharon Shrivastava. Sharon, man, it's all yours, brother.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate you. Hey, everybody. Super excited to be with all of you. I'm so excited that I get to partner with Drew, who leads Real Academy and all agent performance at Real. So super excited to be with all of you today. Here's what's going to happen. I see our chats flying in. So if you have been in any session with me in the past, you will know that the only way for us to have a great dialogue today together is to use the chat. So I need you guys to use the chat. The chat is the right vehicle for us. We're all going to be looking at it overall. So super excited to be with you. But before kind of we get started on all of this, a few things. from a housekeeping perspective, our Zoom's maxed out, and that's why we have a YouTube link. And so a lot of people who will join right now will automatically get redirected to that. So yes, the Zoom is maxed out. You will ask questions regarding whether this is being recorded. This is 2024. Yes, this is going to be recorded. And of course, since you are here, you will get a copy of this. Our job is to make sure that whatever you see, whatever we do, whatever we build, whatever we share is all yours today. So please know that. If somebody asks, is this going to be recorded? I want you to tell them, hey, this is 2024. So if you see like, is this going to be recorded? Just say, hey, this is 2024. It's crazy that we still ask for all of that, right? Which is cool. So if you all know that have been around me for any level of time, you know that I probably have built a 5-hour presentation that I'm going to scrunch down and give it to you in the next 45 minutes. And we're going to actually build all of this together. So you have to give me permission to go fast today. And I want to see how fast you give me permission to go fast. So if it's cool for me to go fast, but still give you all the material towards the end, please type me a fast in the chat. That way I'll get your permission to go fast, but I'll still give you everything today. All right. All right. So I think, man, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for being on with us. Right. This means so much. And so I want to set this up. I want to set the stage for all of us in this process, right? First, on our call, this is a very important set of rule changes that we're going to see happen. In fact, this is probably the most complex bundle of industry changes in the last 50 years that we are seeing that is fundamentally changing the practice. And I know a lot of other companies and teams and brokerages and vendors are all trying to share their ideas, and I really appreciate that. But most importantly, I want to tell you, our teams work super hard to provide this for you. And on the call is my partner, the Lion to Me Pro like himself. We have our CFO, Ms. Michelle Rustler. We have our Chief Operating Officer, my partner, Jenna Rosenblatt. We have our General Counsel, Miss Alex Lumpkin, and of course, our Chief Marketing Officer, Ms. Ray Madden. And we also have a special guest who I will introduce in a minute, Mr. Samir Dedia, who runs all of our mortgage business. But most importantly, I want to thank a group of people today before we start, and that is our state brokers. We are a very, very unique company because we have 50 plus states and DC and all the marketplaces where we own and operate our entire business. We're not a franchise, so we are in the weeds, in the trenches. So if you could do me a favor and just give a quick shout out to your broker in the chat. If you're a real or you're not a real, it doesn't matter. Just let's honor them. Let's highlight them. Let's support them. Give them a quick shout out in the chat because they're going to be your guide through this entire process. And we appreciate you all so much in this process. So thank you for supporting us in this entire process. All right. So yeah, if all of you can see the chat, it is flying, and that's the most important part about the love we give our brokers in this process. So thank you so much. But I want to start this off with a very important thing, which is this idea of that we must lead with grace. If this is the most complex set of changes that is going to hit in our recent lifetime, we have to lead with grace. It on the outside, this may look very simplistic, but I'm telling you, it's not. You're seeing the misinformation and implementation issues from the NAR level, at the broker level, at the state-based level. There's so many complexities. So I would offer to you to lead with grace. I would offer to you when you see another agent doing something that is off kilter, doing something that you know is not right, instead of turning them in and having them get fined right now, I would offer to lead with grace. I would offer to have a conversation and say, hey, Sharon, have you had a chance to look at these? You may want to talk to your broker about this. You don't have to tell somebody how to do their job. I just think we should lead with grace because there's a lot of complexity associated with this. So please promise me, just with a nod, that you are going to lead with grace in this process. All right. Thank you. This is the most important thing that we talk about because everything else is semi-irrelevant. Here's something that is fantastic that you all should look at. There is a lot of misinformation out there. So I saw this post recently, especially anonymous, and they said, oh yeah, did something happen to our industry? Should I ask my broker? Yeah, bro, you should probably ask your broker. Something did happen in the industry, right? Or I see these posts that says, hey, I'm looking to master getting the buyer rep agreement signed. Any tips before it's not a choice? This is a really thoughtful agent asking for help on how we can do things. And when they post it in these groups, you will see a lot of hate, a lot of negativity. And I'd say if you see a post like this, share them. If you see a post like this, help them. If you see a post like this, support them, because this is super, super important, right? You'll see posts like this from our industry. Our agents don't even believe in themselves or believe in you. Right? You will see things like, after August 17th, what else is going to change about our industry besides commissions dropping down to 1%? I mean, crazy. Like, this is crazy. Like, that's not what we're thinking about. It's wild, right? So you see more posts like this saying, hey, it's apparent that agents make stuff up when they don't understand something, like the NAR settlement. By the way, did you know that over 1/3 of agents didn't even know about the lawsuit? Like, that is interesting to me. And that's why we have a responsibility to lead with grace in this process, right? And then this is very interesting. It says, hey, any input would be appreciated. I just had an agent tell me that she can't tell me what the commission is on her listing. And she said it has to be negotiated with the offer that we sent. Now, is this correct? Maybe, but we have to work through this. We have to understand you're going to see more like this. And without understanding and seeing more like this, it's going to be very difficult. And this actually blew my mind. It said, hey, this is from an agent in an agent group. Right? He says, if I were a buyer looking for a new home, I would not sign Jack just to buy a house. Buyer agents are screwed. This is agents without skill, without understanding, without capability, actually saying this. And this is the problem, right? This is not true at all. And in fact, this blows my mind that we would share this with each other, because there's so much here. Buyer agency is not dead. Buyer agency is not extinct. We didn't say the elimination of buyer agent compensation. We're just talking about a lot of decoupling and some new rules. If we learn to navigate this environment well, we will do great. And I want you to just think about this. But most importantly, I saw this and I thought that you will love it. It says, hey, here's a new rule. Before a buyer or a seller is allowed to hire a real estate agent, they must review their 5 most recent posts or comments in Facebook real estate groups. I think this is hilarious. I think this is super funny. I think this is the way people should think about the world, because now we actually have a little bit of humor, a little bit of grace in this entire process, right? This is super funny. But the most important thing I want to tell you is this. I want you to be kind. For everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle that you don't know anything about. It is our job to be kind. There's a complex set of changes that are I'm going to probably fire hose you with so much information, but we have to be kind. All right. So before we get into all of this, I want to share one thing specifically with you, and that is this. We have several of with 3 groups of people on the call today. We have agents at Real, which I'm super glad to be with you and support you and work for you. We have agents that are not at Real. Thank you so much for being with us. This is an industry event, and thank you so much for sharing this with us. And third, we have members. We probably have some consumers. We have members of the media. We have other leadership. Thank you so much for being with us. Everything that we do, we want to share with you, right? And so there's nothing here that is proprietary. Like, we believe that if we can give you everything, you're going to have we're going to create a great playing field for all of us. But I want to give a quick shout out. So if we know, I personally know of 50 to 80 watch parties that are happening around the country right now. And so many agents paid for and put on several of these viewing and watch parties. And so if you're in a viewing and a watch party right now, do me a favor. On a count of 3, I want you to give me a big yell and a scream to thank the host, all right? If you're at a watch party, 1, 2, 3. Cool. Like, just give them a yell and a scream, because they didn't have to do that. They put this on for you, and we so appreciate them doing that. All right. So super, super appreciate you guys. All right. Let's jump in, because I have a super tight agenda to take you all through. We talked about leading with grace, and I wanna give you the quick disclaimer, right? I'm not your attorney. I'm not your managing broker. And if you ask my wife, she will tell you that you should not listen to any topic of anything that I ever share about except the Anaheim Ducks. And I'm really just a guy who wants to help you with this process. But you all have to make a choice right now. And so please, 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 you promised me some attention. So please focus on me right now. You have to make a choice. And here's the choice that you have to make. You are probably in one of 3 groups. Group number 1 right now, you are probably a little bit resentful. And you're frustrated with the distraction that all of this has caused. You're frustrated with the media misinformation, and you just want to go back to the way it was. You're probably in this group. There's guaranteed there's some people in this group. There's a second group where you're hopeful. You're curious about how the changes would work in the past, and you're hoping it's not a big shift from the past. And the last part is you're skillful. You are committed to learning and gaining mastery of the new rule set. Now, you have to make a choice right now. And if you are resentful, I'm going to offer to you that this workshop will not help you. So if you're resentful, you might as well just drop, because we are not going back to the old way. There are new rules, and you and I have no choice but to implement the new world in these new rules. So you and I have a choice to make. If you are hopeful and are skillful, I know that we can support each other doing that. But if you are resentful and you're irritated and pissed off, I'm sorry, this will not help you. This is actually going to aggravate you more. So please know that what I'm going to lay out for you is a roadmap for how you actually win in the new world, because we are in the new world. This is the time where you make a choice. This is the time where you make a decision. This is the time where you make a commitment. This is the time where you release your frustration, anger, and irritation and resentfulness with love. And you say, hey, here's the path going forward, and let me tell you why. Because our clients are at a disadvantage if we don't know the new rules and we can't serve them well. Please let me say that one more time. Our clients are at a massive disadvantage if we don't know the new rules and we can't serve them well. So it does not matter if you're resentful. It does not matter if you're hopeful. It does not matter if you're skillful. It does not matter if you're frustrated. None of that matters. As a fiduciary to our clients, we are putting them at an insane disadvantage if you don't actually know the new rules and you can't serve them well. So the past is the past, and we're moving forward in the future. All right. So I want you to make a choice. So if you have chosen, give me a skillful, hopeful, or still resentful in the chat. I'm just going to make you be honest about this. Skillful, hopeful, or still resentful in the chat. So I see a lot of skillful, a lot of hopeful, a lot of skillful, a lot of hopeful. All right, cool. We're not going back to the past. All right, keep going. Here's the interesting thing that showed up for me. And let me tell you why we're all frustrated and confused right now, right? The changes are so complex that we're thinking, wait a minute, what are these changes that are going to happen with the MLS? It looks like this big ball of yarn. I know this is not a perfect graphic. I actually had AI make it. There's a big ball of yarn, and it's so complex right now as you pull each of these threads out. There are changes in the MLS. There are changes at the board level. There are changes at the brokerage level. There are changes with existing deals that you have to manage. There are changes with new forms. There are changes with Zillow and the portals. There are changes with how much time you have to spend learning all of these things. There are changes with scripts that you need to learn. There are changes with the team agreements that you need to have. There are changes on what you may do in open houses. There are changes. There are potentially fines right now, where I saw yesterday that someone got a $500 fine with no warning, no nothing, because of the new rules. Their changes, their influencers are now talking about all these things, and they're trying to sell you something in this process. The influencers are actually creating mass misinformation, and you know that, this entire process. Now, it does not matter if you've used a buyer representation agreement in the past. It does not matter if you're skilled in this process. It does not matter if you know dual agency. It does not matter if you're a broker. Nothing matters. Let me tell you why this is really important right now, because the consumer is different, and we have to solve that. And the most important thing is you are stressed. A lot of our agents are stressed. So I want to change this. And you probably are going to take a screenshot of this. And this is one of my favorite quotes that's going to set everything up, which is, to live through an impossible situation, you don't need to have the reflexes of a Grand Prix driver, the muscles of a Hercules, or the mind of an Einstein. You just simply need to know what to do. I say it again. To live through an impossible situation, you don't need to have the reflexes of a Grand Prix driver, the muscles of a Hercules, or the mind of an Einstein. You just simply need to know what to do. And today I'm going to show you what to do. And this what to do involves 3 components. And here are the 3 components. The components are, instead of this big ball of yarn that you have to solve, I'm going to organize this ball of yarn into 3 big buckets. Bucket number 1 is I'm going to show you what the new rules are and what you need to know about this process. Bucket number 2, I'm going to show you what the client tools that you need to actually talk to a client in this new environment and explain to them how all of this stuff works. And last but not least, I'm going to show you the know-how. What needs to happen on a state-by-state basis so that you can have a clear understanding and implement and execute everything that needs to happen overall. These are the 3 things that we're going to talk about. So if these 3 things make sense, I just want you to give me a number 3 in the chat so you're tracking with me so far, so I can go to the operating version of this. Fantastic. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. So here is where we're going right now. So you may think, all right, Sharon, I'm going to have to draw a little bit. So here's our game plan for today. Our game plan for today is our agreement that we're not resentful. Maybe we're hopeful, but we're definitely skillful. We have to start with that. And so we're going to talk first about the new rules that are coming up, and I'm going to explain to you in English exactly what they are. Number 2, I'm going to tell you about the client tools that you need. How do you explain buyer representation compensation to client? How do you actually get a buyer rep agreement signed? What do you tell the client in the listing appointment on what exactly happens? I will show you all of that and what to do. And number 3, what do you need to know on a state-by-state basis? I know it's different for each state. What do you need to know on a state-by-state basis so that you can implement this overall? And we know that on the surface, No one knows any of these things. This is what nobody sees. But on the surface, they should all be seeing only one thing, and that is to lead with grace. All right. So this is our game plan for today. This is what I'm going to go through. I'm going to show you the new tools, the rules, and all of this overall. So this is our game plan. That way you know exactly where I'm going with this process. So I have shared this thing with you before. So let me reframe this for you. I live in this little town called Laguna Beach, California. And I often try to never drive to this town called Los Angeles. And so in essence, I could take two different routes. I could take route number one, which will take me 55 miles. I could take route number two, which would take me 50 miles. Either route works. You're still going to get to Los Angeles. It is a similar destination, but a different route. And the only way you know what to do is if you know the route. The only way what you know is know the route. All right. So I'm going to take you through all that means. And my friend Tim Macy talked about a Disneyland example, so I have to kind of make one. If you want to take a picture of anything, you should take a picture of this because you're going to use these three words often in your thinking. It's optics, semantics, and mechanics. So you're going to say, well, Sharon, similar destination, different route is just semantics. Well, semantics is what got us into the lawsuit. So everything has got to do with optics, semantics, and mechanics. Means it needs to pass all three rules. All right. So optics is how it looks. Semantics is what the language is. And mechanics is the practice. All right. It has to pass all three rules, right? It's the linguistics. So now you may say, well, Sharon, what is this? I'll give you an example. You're going to laugh at me, but let's say this is that's my Mickey Mouse. All right. I live right by Disneyland. This is my Mickey Mouse. So here's the interesting part. Let's say you went to Disneyland, right? And you saw everybody standing in line. You saw everybody standing in line. And you're like, cool, they use lines here. It looks like they're standing in line. Sorry, that's an Easter bunny, but that's like my really bad Mickey Mouse. So everyone's standing in line. The semantics are, there are signs for where to stand in line. Or in the app, it tells you where to go in the line. And the mechanics are, you stand in line. You actually stand in line. Now, all three of these have to make sense. Because let me give you an example. Let's say you go to Disneyland and you don't see anybody standing in line. But then there's a sign that says stand in line. You're not going to do it. That's the point. Because if the optics, the semantics, and the mechanics are not all lined up, then it's broken. It doesn't work. All right. So let me get into it. So here's the new rule set. If you were not paying attention, this would be the time where you focus, pay attention. All right. Here we go. Here's the new rule set. There are three big rules that you need to think about. And I want to give you the themes of these rules so that you understand them at a very visceral level so you can evaluate them as you come across them. So there's three big rules related to the NAR settlement. All right. The first rule is that it's a representation-based approach. We already had representation on the listing side. We had informal representation on the buy side in the process. So there's now going to be a formal representation-based approach. That is number one. Here's number two. You've heard this a lot. There's decoupling of compensation. Even though you feel like, oh, now there's no broker-to-broker compensation, but it's shared, et cetera. You have all these things in here. I'm going to explain what decoupling of compensation is for you. That is the second rule. And the third rule is there are processes and practices to get all of these working. So representation-based approach, decoupling of compensation, and processes and practices. These are the three things that you need to know right now. For our folks that need a workbook, et cetera, you should have these so you can draw with you. This is something good that you want to know. So when you're explaining to client, this is what you want to know in this process overall. All right. So let me break down each one of these. I think you'll appreciate it. I want to talk to you about the representation-based approach. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, Sharon, you're going to break everything down for me into the most basic pieces. Yes, so that you have a full understanding of this entire process, right? So let's say this is, on the left is the past, and on the right is the future, right? So let's first take the listing side, and then we'll take the buyer side. The listing side, in the past, is what you have known, is if a seller wanted to sell a house, what they would do is they would enter into a listing agreement with an agent. That is representation. We all know that, which is perfect. That makes sense. In the future, it's still similar. No big change on this one. A seller will still enter into a listing agreement with an agent for representation. Now, what happens on the buyer side? Well, let's talk about the past. In the past, a buyer, say we have three buyers here, say each of them engage with an agent. There's an informal engagement of seeing properties. That's why we say buyers are liars. We don't really mean that. There's an informal engagement of representation. And each of these agents show each of these buyers the house. That's what we used to do in the past. Well, what's going to happen in the future is you have the same 3 buyers and you have the same 3 agents. But each of these buyers are going to sign a written agreement for representation. That is the difference. And then the process works exactly the same way. Now, I'm oversimplifying it, but what I'm trying to tell you here is that to work with a buyer, you need a written agreement. And that all involves a representation-based approach. All right. So if this is good so far, give me a 1 in the chat. So we feel like, cool. So we got the first one done, which makes perfect sense. You need to have a representation-based approach on both sides. Cool. Here's number 2. A little bit more complex. So let me actually take you through all of this overall. Now, I'm seeing a bunch of comments like, hey, I don't agree with this. I've seen this before. I always do this already. I'm very familiar with this process. I'm so glad that you are. But the interesting part is this is not about you. This is not about us. This is about our industry and how it's perceived by the client. So we have to actually up level and upgrade our skills. So super glad that you're with us to work through this process, right? Let's talk about decoupling of compensation. Again, this is the past and this is the future, right? So let me explain how this works. So in the past, what happened is, let's say there was a home and the seller entered into a listing agreement to sell the house, right? And let's say there was, I'm just making up this number. Let's say there was a $10,000 commission, or I'll actually make it easier. Let's say there was a 6% commission offered, right? Overall, this was the past, right? Now, what does the seller do? The seller takes the 6% and he says, hey, we're going to pay the listing broker 6%, right? It's the 6%. And the listing broker now says, hey, you know what? I did a bunch of work on this property. I'm going to keep 3.5% and I'm going to share 2.5% with the buyer agent. This is called cooperation compensation. You already know this, right? This is where broker to broker is where the arrangement happens. And this is called cooperation compensation. This, let me be very clear, is the past. There's no more broker to broker compensation. And I'll actually talk about the nuances of that in 1 second. So you may say, all right, Sharon, if this is the case and we can't do this anymore, what can we do in the future? So there are 4 ways that we have talked to counsel about, we've talked to brokers about. There's 4 ways in which you can kind of break this down, actually 3 plus 1. So let me break down how exactly this works. Decoupling of compensation requires seller-directed compensation or buyer-directed compensation. Please know that language: optics, semantics, mechanics. Seller-directed compensation or buyer-directed compensation. And here's how this works. In this example, the seller will still pay listing agent commission. By the way, I think as an industry insider, you got to give me some grace on this one, because I'm probably going to use listing broker, like broker and agent interchangeably, just for our use right now. As you know, I understand how this process works, that a contract, that a listing agreement is signed with the broker or the brokerage, and the agent is a licensed person that services that listing. So the contract is not between the client and the agent. The contract is between the agent and the broker. So I understand that. I may use listing broker and listing agent simultaneously or synonymously for a couple of examples. So before I start to see chat notes on that, I just wanted to call that out, okay? So in example number 1, a seller pays listing agent, right? And in a seller-directed compensation, the seller pays buyer agent. That is seller-directed compensation. The second way, the seller still pays the listing agent. Now the buyer pays the buyer agent. And you may say, Sharon, when is this even possible? Well, I just paid the buyer agent on a deal that I just got recently that we bought off market. This happens all the time. It just may not be common. So that's the second way of doing this. The third way is a combo way, and where the seller pays the listing agent, and the seller pays the listing agent, and the buyer pays the listing agent in some form of combination. That is the third way. And the fourth way is in some areas and markets, there's a lot of concession-based processes. Now, you may say, what is a concession? A concession is just an adjustment to the terms of exchange. So people don't know what a concession is. If you tell a random person, like, I would offer to not talk about concessions with your clients, because when you say concession, they think popcorn at a movie theater, right? They don't know what a concession is. And a more sophisticated person, when you tell them what a concession is, they'll be like, when they say concession, they'll think it's a discount. So when I told my wife, hey, have you heard about concessions in real estate? I'm like, am I getting a discount? So we use terminology without thinking how it's impacted in the normal world. But so just know this. So the other way, which is the fourth kind of asterisk way of doing it, is that a seller may provide a concession to the buyer, and the buyer will pay the buyer agent, and the seller will pay the listing agent. Now, if you notice, there's something very important here. There's something that does not exist, right? So before we get into what is allowed in concessions and all of that, just we need to know these four scenarios, right? And you're noticing that there is no broker to broker compensation in that realm. This is super, super important, right? These are the four ways, and that's why decoupling of compensation is really important. So now I will get through your questions. Please hold. If this all sounds good so far, can you please give me a number 2 in the chat? So I feel like I'm moving in the right direction. Cool, fantastic. It looks like everyone is on track with this, which is awesome. Now, let me tell you the third part. The third part is the advertising offers of buyer agent compensation. Now, here is what would happen in the past. So this is the past and this is the future. Let me tell you how this works. So you probably know all of this stuff. So let's say a listing agent gets a new listing, and let's say this listing is, I'm just going to make up the same example as 6%. In the past, listing got a 6% listing. And let's say the listing agent is going to keep 3.5% and is open to offering the remainder, which is 2.5%, to the buyer, right? To the buyer agent. Now, what the listing agent would do in the old world is they would put this 2.5% in the MLS as a unilateral offer of cooperation compensation. Please note that, a unilateral offer of cooperation compensation. The reason we do that is because the MLS has always been an arbiter of cooperation compensation. That was their main role, where they said that, hey, if Sharon put 2.5% as cooperation compensation, we can assume that we will get paid that 2.5%. That unilateral offer of compensation was seen by all the buyer agents and their members in the marketplace. And that was good because you knew the compensation being offered. That, in essence, is cooperation compensation, right? This is gone. That's what I want you to realize, right? So what does the new world look like? The new world looks the first like this. There are no more offers of buyer agent commission on the MLS. So this means that there's no direct or indirect offers. There's no sneaky ways of putting it. There's no stuffing it into concessions field. Please, in no way. I know that you may have told, hey, it needs to be 2 indirect clicks away. I know that you maybe have been told that, hey, you can put a phone number in there, but don't explicitly say something. I know that you've been said that, hey, I'm going to put a code in there. I know you've been said that I'm going to stuff it into a concessions field. Please, do not do any version of saying, oh, we're buyer agent friendly. Do not do any version of that. There is no reference to buyer agent compensation on the MLS of any kind. Please do not get cute on this process. Do not put it in there. Do not put anything in there. The reason, I will tell you why some of us are a little nervous. The reason why some of us are a little nervous is because we are unsure that if we don't put it in there, we're unsure that, oh my gosh, if I don't put it in there, how would a buyer agent actually get an incentive to come and see my listing? That's what we're thinking because we're still stuck in the old world. And I want to offer this to you that we have a new playing field. It doesn't matter. All the offers of compensation are going to get negotiated differently. And please, please, please do not get cute. You will get fined. Do not get cute. No offers of compensation, direct or indirect, in any way should be made on the MLS. Do not put anything on the MLS. All right? That's number 1. Here is number 2. Before we get into cute details, I will explain all of this to you. Hang with me. I know you have questions. Chill for a second, right? Advertising offers of compensation is okay off the MLS. All right? Advertising offers of compensation. So if you said, I want to put it in open houses, I want to send a video about it, I want to send a YouTube about it, I want to send an email about it, I want to put it in my open house, I want to put it, all of those are okay as long as it is off the MLS. Now, here's what I would offer to you. I would offer to you that since unilateral offers of compensation are gone, I would offer to you that what you should do in this process is to ensure that, oops, sorry, are you still seeing this? Cool, awesome. Is that you should have a conversation with your sellers about the strategy around offering and advertising offers of compensation. Please focus on me for 1 second. This is an important component. Just because unilateral offers of compensation are gone and you now are like, hey, if I can't put it on the MLS, I'm going to blast it everywhere else. That may be okay from a thinking perspective, but now you're instantly reducing your ability to manage a negotiated transaction. There may be a situation where you don't want to promote offers of compensation to anybody. There may be a situation where you don't want to tip your hand and show what you're offering. I'll give you a crazy example, right? Here's a crazy example. This is true, by the way. I've shared it with multiple agents. I recently had a flip. And the flip went live like last week, a week and a half ago. I told our listing agent to not put any offers of compensation on the MLS as an experiment, because I wanted to put my money where my mouth was to try and figure out how this worked for you. And then the listing agent said to me, hey, Sharon, what do you want me to tell the buyer agents when they call? I said, when the buyer agents call, this is what you say. My seller is open to paying buyer representation compensation based on the terms of the offer. I just wanted to try, because there was no advertising of cooperation compensation at all. And I say cooperation compensation because it's still the past. There's no advertising of buyer agent compensation at all in the past. I told him to say, my seller is open to paying buyer representation compensation based on the terms of the offer. Now, you are going to get triggered when I tell you that, but let me tell you the result of what happened. It was a flip. It was done well. I got 6 offers on the first day, right? 2 of them were contingent, so drop them out for a second. Of the 4 offers that I got, they were all in similar price ranges over asking, but the highest one had 2.5% request for buyer agent compensation, and the lowest one had a request for 1% buyer agent compensation. Just so you know, right? So as a listing agent, you should talk about that to your seller, explaining the potential strategy of whether or not you should actually utilize the promotion of buyer agent compensation. I'm not telling you should not do that. You're well within your rights to advertise buyer agent compensation off the MLS, but you and your seller should talk about it, and it should be seller authorized and seller directed. All right. Now here's the last one. You're like, well, Sharon, if that's the case, how are buyer agents ever going to get paid? So let me explain. So let's say there's a buyer, and let's say you have a buyer rep agreement signed with an agent. And now the agent, now you make an offer on a property, right? There's an offer. Everything is going to be related to the offer. Now, the new world of offers is going to have 2 philosophical components. Please know this. The new world of offers is going to have 2 philosophical components, not 2 components, because an offer is an offer. What is an offer? An offer is a terms of exchange, right? An offer is not I want to buy your property for 1.2 million. An offer are the terms of exchange. That's what you're building out. So an offer has 2 components to it philosophically. One, it's going to have the terms of exchange for the property. And the second, it's going to have a request for buyer agent compensation. This is what the future is. So you can call, you can text, you can email the listing. It doesn't matter. We are going to go to a future where there's a request for buyer agent compensation and terms of the offer are going to be bundled together as part of the offer. All right. This is the new world. Now, please, am I good so far? Please give me a number 3 in the chat, because this was the 3rd piece that we talked about. Cool. Awesome. Fantastic. I want to show you, I cannot believe I have a light picture of a lighthouse here and some direction, but this is if you are not paying attention to anything so far, please, I need you to pay attention for maybe the next 30 seconds. So our job here is, think of this as me. Okay, I'm going to shine you the way to the lighthouse. And where you want to get to is you want to get to here. This is the beach. This is the happy path. That is Tyler Hassman in the boat with his hat, right? This is the happy path. Now you may say, hey, Sharon, I want to get to this place where I want to show you this little red patch in the middle. I'll tell you what this is. This is broker to broker compensation. This is the big rocky reef that you have right now that you should do whatever you need to do to avoid. That's what you need to do here. And so the only way, you got to get around this, or you got to get around this. And let me tell you, that is lava, that is the rocks. Broker to broker compensation, bad. Cooperation compensation, don't use the term. There is no more cooperation. There's no more sharing of commissions. Now you may say, Sharon, that is not actually true, because my state allows that. So there's a good chance that in some of our states, the state-based implementation still is referencing some version of the past related cooperation compensation. If you know that your state still has some version of the past of cooperation compensation, can you put a me in the chat? Can you put a me in the chat if your state still offers some version of cooperation compensation? Okay, if you notice, there's a lot of people in a lot of states that have not implemented this new rule, and it's totally okay. So please, let me explain something. As a brokerage, we have several brokerages that are making a stand on no more broker to broker compensation, right? However, I will tell you this, our strong stand is that we should stay as far away from broker to broker compensation as possible. In fact, we don't support it at all. However, there are multiple states that have implemented the new rules with traces of cooperation compensation in there. Now, if we overlay a brokerage-based rule related to that, it will cause insane friction in the marketplace, right? You're not going to know which form to use. Now, if we give you a new form and the state has a new form, you're not going to know what form to use. And you're going to be like, wait a minute, who should I follow in this process? And you're going to get confused, and it's going to cause pain for your clients. So what Real is doing is we are hopeful that all the states will work through the complexities and the iteration. We'll get to the point of this place. We'll get to the point of the lighthouse. We'll get to the point of true decoupling. We are moving towards true decoupling, and we are completely against broker-to-broker compensation in the spirit of true decoupling. But we understand that some states have the implementation in place. If you are able to stay away, stay clear from anything related to cooperation compensation or broker-to-broker compensation, please do that, because we foresee that these states are going to change their policies, and we're going to get to a true version of complete no broker-to-broker compensation. This is our stand on the matter. I just want you to know on this one, please, 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 if you don't remember anything else, remember this. You are a cool person in this boat. You have to go around the rocks of broker-to-broker compensation to actually deliver this overall. All right. So if this makes sense, give me the word boat in the chat. That way I'll know that you got it, and I can go on the next one. All right. Fantastic. Super cool. Thank you guys so much for going with that. Now you may say, all right, cool, Charan, you're just hammering us with a lot of this information. So what is commission decoupling? What are the pieces of commission decoupling? And I want you to, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I was like, hey, what is true commission decoupling? And I want to explain that to you. So commission decoupling, in my opinion, has 4 pieces of the puzzle. And if all these forces are right with the optics, semantics, and mechanics, you win. Number 1, is a representation-based approach. And the representation-based approach essentially says that you have a listing agreement or a buyer agreement, a formal agreement to actually kick off the process, right? The second is a contractually negotiated structure in which everything is based on the offer and acceptance overall that actually determines what happens in the transaction. The third is having strategic advertising of buyer agent commission. So you know if it's either what you can't do on the MLS and what you can do off the MLS. You know exactly what is needed. And most importantly, any form of seller-directed compensation needs to go from seller directly or buyer directly. So it's seller-directed compensation or buyer-directed compensation. There is no cooperation compensation. So please do me a favor and don't use cooperation anymore. All right. So if this sounds good so far, by the way, lending, I know you guys have questions on all of this, so please give me 10 seconds. I'm getting to the lending. I'm getting through all the components. Hang tight, right? So if all of this looks good, give me a number 4 in the chat. So I feel like we hit this as well. Cool. So we got the number 4. So now you may be saying, please, this is super interesting. Now you're like, Sharon, this is interesting. You shared all of these pieces with us, but our clients don't know any of this. How in the world are we going to be sharing all of this stuff with our clients? Sharon, can you actually talk to my clients and explain all this stuff to them? Well, I probably can't do that for all our, 20,000 people that are on right now. I probably can't do that. But what I can do is give you something pretty cool. So what we built is I made an unbranded video that does not have any branding on it. I made an unbranded video that you can just share with your clients that explains them this entire process, right? That way you know that you can do this. Now, here's the even better part of it. If you would like to take my video, rip off the audio, rip off the text, and record your own video, you are welcome to do that. This is completely open source. I want to give it to you so that you don't have to stress about what you send to your clients in this entire process. All right, here's the next one. Now, you may have clients that are probably not going to watch a video and they may probably want a one-pager. What we built is we built one-pagers for you that actually explain this process to an entire client. So this is a one-page front to back that we're actually giving you a client-centric document that you can just download and use. All right. Now, even better, if you're an agent at Real, you now have the ability on the Real backend, just like my friend Paige Steckling over here, to customize this for yourself, to put your photo and your contact information in there, and actually create this overall for yourself. So you already pre-built this so that you can generate all of this for your clients. Now, you may say, Sharon, that's interesting. Can you show me all of this stuff? So let me actually show you this overall. Give me 1 second. So this is the cool part where I want to show you what we have built for you. 1 second here. Cool. So this is live on YouTube right now. I think the team already dropped the link. I recorded the entire breakdown for, oops, I don't know what you're seeing. Let me double check what you're seeing. Oh yeah, you are seeing the right thing. I recorded the video for you so you can see this process overall, which should make full sense. And I also, we also dropped the links of the one pagers, so you actually have them in this process. So you have all of the, not only did I record the video, I also recorded the common objections that a client may ask in this process. So you don't have to do anything. I took out all the branding in this process, so you can actually share this with your clients. So if this sounds good, give me a good in the chat so I can move on to the next one. Cool, awesome, fantastic. Super, super cool. Very cool on this overall. So now let me get you to part 2 of this process overall, which is the implementation. All right. Can we take a break? Can we take like a 5-second break? Can you just give me like a good, take a good deep breath break, all of this stuff, which is good. There's some questions about, you know, can we do this in other languages, etc. Yeah, just reach out to our team. We're happy to translate all of this stuff for you. Cool. So I've got 2 more pieces of the puzzle to share with you. If you did not share this before, I talked about the new rules. So you actually have all the new rules. I want to talk to you about the know-how and the tools first, and I'll take you through this entire process. Okay. So here's the next step in this process. So I want to talk to you about the implementation and know-how. And what this means is, how are things being implemented at a state-by-state level? All right, so let me actually take you through that. At this time, I'm super grateful for our state brokers. So hopefully you give me, thank you for supporting us in this process. So here's this entire process. All right. First, let's talk about changes in the mortgage world. Team, could we pull my friend Samir back on to this call and spotlight him? I think this will be really helpful. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to introduce you to my friend and partner, Mr. Samir Dedia. Samir is the CEO of One World Mortgage and the mortgage Jedi, as we call him. He knows everything about this process, and he's been so great in helping our clients navigate this. Samir, how are you, my friend? Oh, you're muted, or I can't hear you.
I'm great. How are you, Sharon?
Good, bud. Hey, I wanted, as we talked about, a lot of folks have questions because I think 7 out of 8 transactions that happen in the U.S. actually have a lending component associated with it. And you articulated a few changes, which I kind of want to talk through. And I'd love for, I'll put them up on the screen, and then I'd love for you to maybe take our agents through this.
Absolutely. Look, I think mortgage is a big component about what is happening today. But think of mortgage as your partner. Think of mortgage as a way to help you get through this and figure out creative ways to help your clients. So a couple things real quick. Update number 1, this hasn't changed. This has been here forever. But for all conventional FHA, VA, USDA loans, they are not allowing the financing of buyer agent commissions directly into the mortgage. Example, if your buyer is paying you a commission, they want to include that in the mortgage, roll it in like a MIP for FHA, not allowed. But there are other opportunities and other ways to help you and your clients with the changes that are occurring. Seller concessions. I think you're going to hop to the next one, Sharon. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Seller concessions, right? Sharon hit on this a little bit, but they're also called IPC, interested party contributions. That's the technical term, if you will. And buyer agent commissions are not considered IPCs, or interested party contributions, and I'll tell you why. So overall, you have to understand, hopefully most of you understand what a seller concession is, but just in case you don't, seller concession is when a seller is willing to give something of value, a credit to the client to use to offset closing costs or eliminate them completely. That's what a seller concession is. Seller concessions are rolled into the purchase price. For example, if you buy a home for $400,000 and the seller is saying we'll give $10,000 of that to the buyer to use towards closing costs, that $10,000 is coming from the $400,000. I'll get to that in a minute, why that's really important now. But depending on the product, seller concessions range from 3 to 9%. That's what's allowable. Factors include down payment, loan type, occupancy type, etc. So to summarize real quick, conventional is not, they're not considering buyer agent commissions as part of the IPC, as part of interested party contributions. So what does this mean? If you're getting if the seller is able to give a 4% concession on a conventional loan, Fannie and Freddie are allowing the additional 3%, for example, for buyer agent commission to be added on top of that. So again, not included in the IPC. FHA loans, similar stance here. Max contributions are 6%. If they're going to give, cover the buyer agent commission, that means the buyer is able to get the 6% plus the 3%. VA loans, this one was on the fence for a little bit, guys. Like there was not a lot of kind of, thoughts from the VA on what they were going to do. They were keeping everything as is. However, about 2 months ago now, June 11th, they came out with a short-term policy. And the policy is that they will allow the additional 3% to be added on top of the allowable contributions from the seller for IPC. So again, same stance as conventional and FHA. So you get 4% plus the 3% max. Again, a lot of this has to be considered in line with what's going on in the market, right? So if they ever feel that it's going out of whack with what's in line, you're going to start to hear noise around this. Jumbo loans typically go in line with conventional mortgages, but I will put a little word of caution here. Jumbo loans are really specific to the investors buying those loans. So obviously, like anything, talk to your lenders, talk to your lending partners, and find out what the jumbo guidelines are. If you have jumbo clients, those can vary dramatically from lender to lender. And the third lending update, how can you work with your lending partners better? Sharon, if you want to hop to the next one. So there's a few things that I've highlighted that we're doing here at One Real Mortgage to help our agent partners. But overall theme, collaboration, right? Collaboration with your lending partners. You're probably doing this already, but even now it's more and more important to understand and make sure your lending partners are adequately equipped with the changes that are occurring. Verified approvals. This is not your normal pre-approval. This is an underwritten pre-approval, not underwritten by a machine, but underwritten by a human being. These are extremely important because as you look at opportunities around seller concessions, buyers, bringing funds to closing, perhaps for the buyer agent commission, that can impact the loan. And if there's not adequate vetting of the client, your client is going to be put in a really, really bad position at time of application. The other piece is consideration of seller concessions with the appraisal. So we talked about it before. If the home value is $390,000 and there's $10,000 being added, making it $400,000 as the actual purchase price, please, please, please make sure that there's comps to justify the value of $400K. You don't want to put your client in a bad position, hoping that, it'll just fly through. Vet out the value of these homes. Requalify. You might be like, what are you talking about? What is a requalification? Requalifications are what our team is doing today. Use your lending partners to go through your existing pipeline of pre-approved buyers and go through again, making sure the clients understand the changes, making sure that they have adequate funds, making sure their debt to income ratio is in line if they're going to finance the additional 3%. Those are important qualifying pieces. Just because they were qualified 3 months ago doesn't mean that with the current changes, they might be qualified today. We're doing that with a lot of our agent partners. And the last piece, make sure your lending partner is up to date and up to speed on the changes. We saw this back in 08, 09 in the mortgage world. And after the first rollout, changes were happening. Things were moving around. There was uncertainty of what was happening in the mortgage world at that time. I look at this as something very similar. Your partner is someone who's there to really help you deliver on the goals that you want to provide to your clients. So make sure they're educated in what the changes are and making sure they're keeping you updated on any lending changes that will be happening as things progress. So
Dude,
that's all I have, Sharon. Thank you.
So good, man. Thank you, Samir. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for doing this for us. All right, I'll go right back to Spotlight to get everybody on this. Samir, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Samir Dedia, my partner and our CEO of One Real Mortgage, one of the smartest minds in the mortgage and real estate business. So I hope you were paying attention. Now, I saw a lot of questions in the chat. So let's zoom out. So pause before you stop talking, right? Like just pause for a second. You know that I'm not just going to give you like 5 links and not know where to get anything. We're going to give you everything. We're going to give you everything packaged so you have full access to all of it. You don't have to go searching for the Canva links or anything like that. Just relax. We'll give you everything. I just wanted to show you all the pieces of everything that is coming, all right? We'll have all the pieces of all the puzzle handed to you in a single package so that you can use them as you want. And we're in the trenches with you. I know that you're not going to, you do not have the ability to manage 7 links and figure out which link you're going to click, because then you're going to go post in Facebook and ask for that. We know you. So we're going to give you everything. So please, if you know that I'm your bro, just give me a bro in the chat. That way I'll know that I got you. Like, we'll give you everything. Just give me a bro in the chat, and that'll allow me to go. Awesome. Thank you. Right. Next one, we got to do a dog, but that was really good. Thank you. All right. All the templates will give it to you. All the slides will give you all the information we talked about, all the direct downloads to the link. We'll give you everything. Just hang tight. I just want to show you all the pieces of this puzzle. Okay. Let me keep going. You got a sense of what the lending environment was, but now I wanted to explain this thing overall for you to understand the thinking behind this. And the thinking is there's 3 levels of implementation, and people just think, oh my gosh, what do I have to, an agent have to do? I want to explain to you that this has got nothing to do with me. I don't work for 3%. Like, there is no I in this anymore. Just hang out for a second and understand the new rules. This is about, we are a fiduciary for our clients. We need to understand the new rules in this process. So until you can understand how the landscape works, you can't really understand how you can navigate it, right? So just hang with us for a second while I explain this to you. There's 3 big pieces of implementation. One is what we call the national rule set. I already walked you through the 4 important rules associated with that. Number 2 is there are brokerage-based policies, right? The brokerage may say, hey, you can only use our forms. Real is not going to do that. In fact, I will tell you what Real is doing. We're already have designed forms in certain markets to go through the process. We're going to watch what certain states and MLSs are doing from a forms and workflow perspective. And if over the course of time in the near future, if we feel like they're straying away from working through the rules of the settlement agreement, we're going to pull that together and ensure that our agents are protected in this process. So they're brokerage-based policies as well. But last but not least, there's state-specific implementation. And this is probably a lot of the questions that you've had. There is zero way that I can go through 50 states plus DC and explain to you each of the state-by-state localized implementation issues. And I will tell you, I'm going to wager what is on your mind right now. So what you are probably thinking is, Sharon, there's so many scenarios of how this could go. Like, I have to rethink and relearn how to do the real estate business that I've known for the last 10, 15 years. I know this. I know you feel this. And you're probably thinking, this is how I feel right now. I feel like I got this big ball of yarn with all these confusing mechanics associated with it. How am I going to figure out all the scenarios, all the new rules, all the new forms, all the things I need to do? If you feel this way in some way, can you give me a me? Because I want to know that you feel this. Like, if you know all of this, you're weird. You're weird, because I can't keep up with all of this, right? And so I want to, and here's the crazy part. I'm going to wager that most of you don't even know where to start. You're like, where do I start figuring out the right scenarios? It doesn't matter if you have everything broken out. Where do you start and figuring out the right scenarios? And I want to show you something. We got together and we built the agent success scenarios. We have outlined 26 scenarios that every single real estate agent must know in order to navigate this post-settlement environment. Now, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but what this is designed to do is, based on the rules and based on the implementation, we want you to have these 26 scenarios as a starting point, because if you have these, it'll give you the best starting point in this entire process. And I'm going to give you all of these 26 scenarios. These 26 scenarios are already pre-built, and we built them in multiple formats for you. In fact, the format that I like the most, what I want to show you is, I want to show you a Google Slides format. You can download this Google Slides. We can drop the link in the chat. We can download this Google Slides. And what we have done is we've actually created 26 scenarios, 10 scenarios that are process-based scenarios, and 16 scenarios that are compensation-based scenarios. And all you have to do is, we actually give you the question, and you should go research the answer if you know it, and write down the answer. That way, when you're working with your team, when you're working with your clients, when you're working with your brokerage, when you're working with whoever, you know that if you get these 26 scenarios handled, you will be in a pretty good spot, because that'll give you a good kickstart into this process. What I want to outline is that these are not exhaustive, right? These are to give you a gateway, a kickstart into this process, to organize your thinking. That way you know exactly, you're like, hey, what if a buyer refuses to sign a buyer representation agreement? You need to have an answer for that. If you don't know the answer, you can now talk to your broker. That way you're not hammering your broker with random scenario-based questions. You know the scenarios and you can feel good about it. Here's the crazy part. Even though you've learned everything, you may never feel confident. Now, if you know these 26 scenarios well, you'd be like, you know what? I feel like I'm in a really good spot, and everything else that I learn is a good part of the process. So you should see a link in the chat. By the way, again, I will give you all of these. I will give you the worksheets. I will give you the Google Slides. We'll give you everything. We built all of these for you, for the industry, so that you can benefit from all of these. There's a good chance that this Google Slide's going to break because we have tens of thousands of people on the chat. But again, we will wrap all of this together and hand it to you overall. All right. Now, I see a lot of questions that are like, hey, I'm going to ask my broker these questions. Yes, this is how you ask your broker these questions. Now, if you are, and someone's asked like, hey, Sharon, you gave me all the questions, but no answers. Well, we have 51 markets, and each of these answers are different a little bit. And I'll actually show you the answers in a second, but this is a worksheet for you to get the answers from your broker, right? It gives you a starting point. Additionally, I want to show you where you can get all the answers. So if you are an agent at Real, what we did is we put together a resource for you that you will see internally on our system, and we have state-by-state details. By the way, I will give you all these, everything packaged. We're not going to individually email out anything to you. We will give you all of these packaged so you have everything in one place. All right, just hang with me as I go through this. Here's state-by-state details. We've broken down state-by-state details of every single state, when the forms will be released, what all the trainings are, and what you need to know, both on the state resources and the Real-based resources. So if you're a Real agent, you're going to have all of these so that you have full access to what is happening on a state-by-state basis. All right, so that is that. I want to make sure you guys feel good about this so far. So you may say, well, Sharon, that's really interesting, but there's these few burning things I have in my mind, like few burning questions. Can you just solve those for us? So I am going to do that for you right now. 6 common scenario questions. So let me actually break down these 6 common scenario questions that you can actually help with this entire process. So let me actually walk you through these. All right. Now, question number 1 is, if a listing agent hosts an open house or provides access to a property on behalf of the seller to an unrepresented buyer, will they be required to enter into a written agreement with those buyers before touring the home? Okay. Essentially, this means if you hold an open house, do you need everybody to sign a buyer rep agreement? The answer is no. And the reason is because you are working for the seller. All right. Good to know this. This is how this works. This is question number 1. That's number 1. A lot of you are going to talk about all the nuances related to these things. What if this situation happened? What if that situation happened? The what ifs right now will kill you. Get the baseline so that then you can learn the what ifs and learn through and work through the filters associated with it, with optics, semantics, and mechanics. I understand we have a lot of ninjas in the room, but you got to get the baseline done. All right. Here's number 2. Is the listing broker required to share all the details if asked by the buyer broker on whether the seller is offering buyer representation compensation? Meaning, if you are a buyer agent and you call the listing agent, is the listing agent required to share what the seller is willing to do from buyer agent compensation? The answer is no. Now, you may say that is a strategic disadvantage. You may say that is a competitive. All that is okay. But the rules say that the seller, the listing agent, the listing broker does not have to tell you anything related to what the buyer agent is offering, what they're offering for buyer agent compensation. You need to know the rule. Now, you can submit it as part of the offer, all of those things, but the listing broker is not required to share all the details, even if asked by the buyer broker, right? This has to be seller directed. And that's what this is the most important part. Here is number 3. You're going to see a lot of these things. I saw this picture of, hey, we're going to give you the key and we're going to put 3% on this. Or you're going to see this, which you probably can't see this. There's a, my friend Krista actually had the lawn. She had put a 3% on the lawn of the house in the photography of the house. Or you can actually say, hey, I'm going to put the lockbox combo as a 3 or a 2.5. These are all really cute. Stop being cute. You can't do this stuff. Don't do this, right? Do not be cute. This is off the MLS. Yes, you can do this. Go ahead and do this if that's what you're thinking. Technically, yes, it's off the MLS. You can do this. But if it's on the MLS, do not do this, right? Stop thinking about cute ways of getting buyer agent commission advertising out and start thinking of a better strategy in this process, right? So the question here is this: can we offer buyer representation compensation in the MLS remarks, in seller concession fields, or by putting secret links or keywords inside the MLS remarks or details? The answer is no. Please do not do that. It is against the rules, right? There is zero reason to get cute on this matter. And we all need to have a simple alignment of these rules. If you see some other agent that has done it, contact them. Lead with grace. Tell them, hey, you may want to talk to your broker about this. Please don't tell another agent what to do. You say, hey, this may be against the rules. Please check with your broker about this. That's what I would say. That shows care in this process. Okay. Here's number 4. This is an interesting one. Please pay attention for a second. What happens if the final buyer commission offered by the seller is higher than the fee negotiated in the buyer representation agreement? And what happens if it's lower? Let me give you an example. Let's say you negotiate a buyer rep agreement for a $10,000 fee. I'm making this up, right? And let's say the seller is willing to pay you a net of $12,000. Well, you can only accept $10,000 because that is the max in your buyer representation agreement. However, NAR just came out with a recent advisory just 24 to 48 hours ago that said that you can amend the buyer representation agreement anytime you want, but that amendment has to be a modification to the buyer representation agreement, and it has to be in writing. Okay, so yes, I understand this process. I probably am the only one that has read the settlement agreement more times than all of you combined, right? So please know that there's new rules, new iterations associated with this, but you want to explain this to your buyer while you're actually getting the buyer rep agreement signed. You want to explain this to your buyer. You should not hide any of this because you want to disclose how exactly compensation works. You can amend as many times as you want, but I will tell you this, modification of terms as agreements is very irritating to clients. So you want to reduce the friction as much as possible and do it strategically. Cool? Here's number 5. Is a buyer representation agreement or other written agreement required before touring homes with the buyer? And the answer is yes. You need some form of written agreement. Now you may say, Sharon, hey, what is this written agreement? Do you think I can actually meet a buyer on at a property because they found me through an online lead and they wanted to see this home, and then you want me to sign a 13-page buyer rep agreement on the hood of a car? No, bro, don't do that. That's weird, right? That's weird. Don't do that. You want the various options of a buyer rep agreement. Let me actually tell you how they are. There's 4 broad options to get a written agreement of representation signed. So let me actually walk you through it. Option number 1 is what we call a touring agreement. That is a scaled down version of a buyer rep agreement that allows you to have a written agreement to actually do something. So like in this case, Zillow, et cetera, are actually going to build in their touring agreement before they actually even have a lead to flex. I will tell you what Real is doing, just so you have an understanding. Real is building, we're in the process of getting touring agreements built for you that are compliant in each state. By the way, this is super important, and let me actually tell you this. There are only 2 sets of agreements that you should check the source of the agreement overall, right? You want to use a state-based form because it's based on the states and they have rules associated with it, or you want to double check if forms are being provided by your brokerage, et cetera, to make sure that they're right forms. There have been several brokerages, I'm sorry to say this, there have been several brokerages that have touted that they've built their own forms, and we've taken those forms and we've given them to local counsel. Local counsel has actually told us that the forms that these other brokerages have built are not compliant, and that makes us very concerned that you would use those forms. So please be careful and know which forms that you're using overall. All right. Number 1 is a touring agreement. Number 2 is a non-exclusive state-based local showing agreement. Several states have come out. I live in the state of California. There's a non-exclusive showing agreement in the state of California. There's a good chance that this is going to happen in every single state. So you will know this overall as well. The third, you may end up talking to a buyer. Maybe you meet them at a Starbucks and then you go do a tour of homes. You may have an adjusted scope buyer representation agreement. And what that means is you may say, hey, Sharon, I know you're flying in from Laguna to Vegas to buy a home in Vegas for the weekend. What I want to do is I want to reduce the scope of this agreement for the next 2 days alone and for the 3 properties that we see. You can adjust and reduce the scope of the agreement if you want as well to make it easier on your buyer and broker relationship. Or last but not least, if you have a chance to actually sit down and have a game plan conversation with the buyer, then you would get the full buyer representation agreement signed. So you want to use the game plan frame, by the way, when you want to use the game plan frame, whenever you're asking somebody about this. So let's say you meet somebody at an open house, you would say, hey, Jenna, has anyone taken the time to sit down and walk you through what it actually takes to buy a home in today's market? And Jenna will say no. And then you say, cool. Hey, why don't we get together to do blah, 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 so that I can show you the process and we can figure out a game plan together. That is called the game plan frame. I created the game plan frame 10 years ago and we've been using this often. So you want this overall. So you may now say, all right, Sharon, this is very interesting, but I have something special for some real agents here. So in real agents, we have built a special app integration of the touring agreement for all real agents. And I'm excited to show it to you right now. So how this works is, oops, sorry. All right, 1 second. I get my agreement here. Cool, overall. All right, so you should see, so if you are So if you are at Real, you will have access to this very soon, and all 50 state-by-state touring agreements. And I want to take you through this process, which is going to blow your mind, right? So you can do it from your phone. So let's say you meet a potential buyer at the house, and you can do this from your phone. This is what you're going to have to do. So here's my touring agreement for the state of Texas. I click send, right? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do it to James Bond. So I'm going to say first name, last name, James Bond. I'm going to do it to a James Bond email address, and then I'm going to do a phone number that is not my phone number, right? So now I click so this is all you have to do, and you click generate agreement. So now the agreement, you say, hey, I want to see properties in Houston, right? And then it begins on X date, cool, and then I just sign. And once I've signed, I click send. This is, by the way, I'm live in the product right now. Once I've clicked and click send, you're done. You don't have to do anything else. What happens is now your buyer gets an email that looks like this. It says, hey, you've just been sent a touring agreement. So you can tell your client, hey, here's a touring agreement. Now what they do is they click on review and sign. When they click on review and sign, it takes you to a portal that we built that actually has videos explaining what the touring agreement is. It gives you backup to the education process of the clients in this entire process. You don't have to do anything. We've already built it for you. So let me actually take you through this entire process. So it says, hello, James Bond, here's what it is, and you click next. So this explains what a touring agreement is, the flexibility, the fees, and all of this. I want to give you an even more powerful thing that the team has built for you, which is insane. So a client will get this, and they click next. And when they get this next, they're going to, I'll sign this out really quick. Create a quick account. All right, so check this out. Imagine, this is all, you can use this if you would like, but Samir and our legal team have built, if you're meeting a client for the first time and you're getting them to sign an agreement, wouldn't it be amazing if you could say, hey, not only am I going to give you a scaled down version of this agreement to sign, if you choose to work with us on the mortgage lending process, we're going to offer you a $2,500 rebate in this process. Now, you don't have to do this, but there's a process, because now think about the power of this. Every other person is saying, let me sit down with you and work with you to get you to sign a binding agreement. You're saying, hey, let me sign a touring agreement with you, and I'm going to offer you money in this process up front. The goodwill, the deployment of goodwill on this is insane, right? And the power of this is insane. So all you have to do, if you want to do this, they check the box. It has all of this, and you click proceed. And now the client just goes down and signs the buyer rep agreement. And once they're done, they're done. But the best part around this is it does the full signed agreement and the entire process all in one place. You get it immediately signed in your real signature account that you don't have to pay for. And this entire process works very smoothly like that. So at the end of the next, in September, you're going to have all 50 states launch in the app. From your app, you can click 3 buttons and get the touring agreement signed, which will also allow for all the rebates and benefits in this process overall. Cool? Awesome. Just give me a cool in the chat. That would be amazing if we can feel good about this entire process. All right, fantastic. So now you're thinking, all right, Sharon, what else are you going to tell me as a part of all of this? And I want to show you the thing that you've probably been waiting for, which is, how do you explain all of this to a client? So I'm going to take you through this process of explaining all of this to a client, which I think you'll really appreciate right now. So I want to give you the useful client tools as a part of this process. All right. Take a deep breath. Me too. I went through, as you can tell, I went through like 4 hours with the material in like under 40 minutes. And I have just a little bit more to give you all the details of this process. Now, please, please, please do not worry. I'll give you all the details. I'll wrap it all up for you, give you everything in a second. Don't worry about anything. I will give you everything, okay? So hang tight for 1 second. There's 3 tools that I want to share with you. First, I want to share with you how to frame the agreement, number 1. Number 2, I want to show you how to talk about the buyer commission to sellers in a listing appointment. That's number 2. And number 3, I want to tell you about how to talk to buyers about buyer compensation in a buyer appointment. I'm going to do these 3 things for you right now. So if this feels good, can you just give me a tools in the chat so I can actually go through and give you all of these right now? Awesome. Fantastic. So let's actually break down the framing of the agreement. You probably have heard me share this before. If you have not been around me for a while, this should be the first thing that you use, whether you're in a listing agreement or a buyer consultation, on how to actually discuss this with a client. Please do not, I'm saying this again. Please do not wait till the end of the appointment, then bring out an agreement because it'll freak the client out. Do not do that. I've been on 113 buyer consultations in the last 7 months. All right. I believe that for what I know, in the top 30 leaders of the top 30 real estate companies, even though they have real estate licenses, they've not talked to a client in a long time. I'm in the trenches with you. I do this stuff with you. I've written these scripts for you because I know that if we can't be in the trenches with you, we can't innovate with you. We can't make you feel safe. We can't support you. That is the process overall. And so please, 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 this is how you start a listing agreement, a listing presentation, or you start a buyer consultation. And the words you use are these. Mr. and Mrs. Klein, there are 3 agreements that govern a real estate transaction. May I walk you through them? First, there's a listing agreement, and you put the listing agreement on the table. You need to have a physical representation of the agreement. If not, they will not get it. And you say, this is between the seller and the listing agent. Technically, it's between the seller and the listing broker. I know your technicalities, you're going to bring this up to me, but I'm using it interchangeably, right? Second, there's a buyer rep agreement, which is between the buyer and the buyer broker, right? Third, there's a purchase agreement, and the purchase agreement is between the seller and the buyer for the agreement of terms, right? This is also called the offer and the acceptance in the process, and these two establish representation. Got it? If you do not explain the 3 agreements in a real estate transaction, the governor real estate transaction, it will be very, very hard for you to get the buyer to understand why you're talking about all of this. We talk a lot about value. I want to show my value. What is showing your value? Showing your value needs to be all based around, hey, representation. Representation, if you don't establish representation, you have no value to offer. The representation is the gateway to understanding and explaining value to a client. Always start with the 3 agreements that govern a real estate transaction. All right? Here is the second part. Please, 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 please give me 40 seconds while I explain this to you. To explain buyer commission to sellers, here's how this is going to work. There was a question about this. This R stands for representation. The listing agreement and the buyer agreement are representation agreements. And this is the terms of exchange, which is the offer, right? All right. Here's how you explain buyer commission to sellers. When you're talking to a seller, you should say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there's 4 key pieces of how compensation works. May I walk you through it? First, for everything that we have talked about, here is how we charge to represent you. So you negotiate your listing broker fee with the listing agreement. All right, that's number 1. Then you say, but you may be curious about how we pay the buyer agent, because you probably are familiar with what happened when you originally bought this house. And how that works is a buyer agent commission is negotiated with the terms of the offer. But Mr. and Mrs. Klein, don't worry about it, because we don't do any kind of offer. We use something that we call a 5-star offer formula. The 5-star offer formula helps us evaluate offers to figure out the best offer. And I want to show you our strategy for breaking down offers. Can I walk you through it? They'll say yes. Then you say, cool, let me show you the 5-star offer formula. By the way, most sellers, I hope a couple of sellers are watching, most sellers are tied to the final purchase price. And most agents and coaches and consultants will talk about, hey, you don't worry about the final purchase price, you only worry about the net. But the net is irrelevant if the other terms are not actually managed. These are the 5 things that actually construct a good offer, right? If you want the purchase price, this is a single star. There's only a single star about the purchase price. That's good. Here's the second one, is the terms of the offer. The terms of the offer we philosophically talked about, it is the terms of the offer and the request for buyer agent compensation. Right? And the terms could include a lot of things. It could include whether it's a cash purchase. It could include whether there's a loan. It could include vendors. It could include, what you want to use for title. All of those terms are very interesting. You all know those terms, right? And then we know that buyer agent capability is really important, right? How many times have you gotten an offer and it was sloppily written? I got an offer from a buyer agent recently. It was so sloppily written, I had to call him back and help him rewrite the better offer. Buyer agent capability is really important on their communication, on how they can actually present the offer, how they can actually rep their client, and your experience in working with them, so you know the certainty of close of this process. Number 3, is the contingency period. You have to explain to a seller that Mr. and Mrs. Client, there are 3 outs that a buyer has in this process. Generally speaking, there are 3 outs based on your state. There's a physical inspection contingency, there's a loan contingency, and there's an appraisal contingency. Let's actually talk about all of them. Maybe there's 20 days for the physical inspection contingency, maybe there's 20 days for the loan contingency, and then maybe there's 10 days for the appraisal contingency. That's 50 days to close. Is that what you want? And most importantly, the timeline flexibility, which is when do you actually close and what conveniences do you need thereof? Do you need a sale leaseback? Do you need some kind of credit? Do you need a delay in escrow? Do you need to do something, a settlement outside of escrow? Unless you understand the 5-star offer formula, you don't really understand how to present something to a client, because what we tell them is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, is I got you. I can get you 41 million. Like we say, I can get you 41 million. You can't get them anything. The market's serving them. It is our job to get them an offer that they want at a price that they want, at the terms that they want. We are facilitating the offer. A seller is looking for a buyer and a buyer is looking for a home. It is our job to facilitate that. You didn't procure anything, right? But you are the representative of the client. It is very easy to say I. Instead, we got to go to we, right? We is better than me, right? That's the cool part about this process. So number 2 is the offer formula. Here's the last part of this. You have to explain this to a client. If the client doesn't understand this, everything will break. And this is, what is our strategy for maximizing offers? The first thing you're going to tell them about is, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I want to talk to you about the competitive advantages of offering buyer agent compensation. Please let me explain this, right? It is going to be a lot of people think this is a buyer agent problem, right? Hey, they say, oh yeah, buyer agents are going to get extinct because they can't negotiate compensation, they can't show value. That is actually not true. What is the true part about this is, as a listing agent, most listing agents in most markets believe that if we don't offer buyer representation compensation, which we never had to, if we don't offer it, they may be at a competitive disadvantage. Let me ask you this. If you believe that in most markets, if a seller doesn't offer buyer representation compensation, if you believe that to be true, can you just put a true in the chat? Can you just put a true in the chat if you believe that to be true? Right? So I want you to see this. Right? We have thousands of people saying that it is true that in most scenarios, for what we know right now, that if the seller doesn't offer buyer representation compensation, they will probably be at a competitive disadvantage. So we have to tell them that. Again, like I said, it depends on the market, right? I didn't offer buyer agent, I offer buyer agent compensation, but I did not advertise it. That's the second part, which is, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I know that you're willing to offer buyer agent compensation. We will evaluate that on the terms of the offer, but I want to talk to you about the advertising strategy of promoting these offers. We cannot promote them on the MLS, but let's talk about how we promote them off the MLS and why that's a strategic decision for us. And now you have the strategic decision on whether you advertise buyer agent compensation outside and how you advertise it. And the third, you can say, as these offers come in, we're going to evaluate each of these offers based on the 5-star formula, and then we're going to pick the best offer and negotiate to get you the best result. By the way, they have no idea what this means. So you can say, hey, for example, let's say we get 3 offers, an offer at $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.4 million. And these are the buyer rep agreement commission terms. What we do is we'll do something called a multiple counter. Let me tell you how that process works. So you actually have to take them to the multiple counter process. You don't tell them, we're just going to counter them. They don't know what that means. But you have to walk them through what you actually do so that they understand that you actually know how to negotiate. And it's not just telling them that we'll meet in the middle. That's what a lot of sellers think that we do, or buyers think that we do. They say, hey, yeah, let's just meet in the middle. No, you want to show them how you use contractual process to negotiate. And that is super, super important. All right. Let me give you the last part of this, and then I'll set you home free. You may say, well, Sharon, how do we discuss the buyer commission discussion about all of this? The buyer commission is, as we talked about, has 4 processes, right? There's a seller paid buyer commission, seller directed. There's a buyer directed buyer commission. There's a combo directed buyer commission, and there is a seller to buyer with concessions, and then buyer pays buyer agent. You have to explain this to a client. Now the client's going to be like, wait, these are the 4 ways in which you can get paid. That's really interesting. How am I going to come out of pocket? And this is when you say, oh, that's no problem at all. Let me explain how this works. When we write the offer, may it be related to cash or contingency periods or terms, we're also going to include a request for buyer agent compensation. That is the part of the offer. And then it is going to be seller directed compensation that we're going to negotiate as part of the offer. And then you may say, but Mr. and Mrs. Klein, you're probably thinking, what if there are surprises? What if the last minute I spring something on you? And I want to promise you that there are going to be absolutely no surprises. So as we figure out when we offer, if we offer certain things on a property, we're gonna look at something called a net sheet. A net sheet. And this net sheet is an itemization. Sorry. I can't write. Sorry. Itemization of monies, right? And this shows people exactly what they get from all of this. Now the buyer is like, okay, there's multiple ways for the buyer agent to get paid. We're going to, that's number one, we're going to use the offer, to use that as offers to ask for seller-directed compensation and negotiate. And then Sharon, the buyer agent, is not going to make me have any surprises. He's going to show me a net sheet before he removes all contingencies, so I know that I'm not going to be stuck with a bill at the end of the day. This is why this is really important. If we don't explain it this way, then the buyer's stress level goes up and we're causing them stress for no apparent reason. Okay, let me pause. I have something cool to show you after this. Can you just give me a, you can do profit sheet, net sheet, like good terminology there. Robin, here's what I would offer to you. If all of these feels good so far, give me a good in the chat. Give me a good in the chat. And I want to show you one more thing. So you may say, all right, Sharon, thank you for all of this. You covered a lot of stuff today. How does all of this stuff work? How do I keep track of all of this stuff? So I want to show you something pretty cool that I'm really excited to give to you. We are launching something called the Real Buyer Playbook. So I'd love for the team to put it in the chat. It's called the Real Buyer Playbook. We have taken everything that I talked about today and we put it in one completely open sourced playbook for every single person to use. Right? So please let me take you to this Real Buyer Playbook. So the first thing that you're going to see is you're going to download this little buyer playbook that we call the Buyer Agent Navigator. All right, let me explain the Buyer Agent Navigator. The Buyer Agent Navigator is our operating manual for real estate agents, right? It's our operating manual on how to navigate this market. So if you have no idea what's happening, let me take you through. I'm sorry to say, I've never seen anything built like this, and big kudos to our team for this. We built the entire playbook that you need to know in a beautifully laid out way that you can utilize to know all the rules, all the tools, and on all the know-how, which is all the questions and all the process scenarios that you can print out and actually get the answers to in this process overall. There's nothing like this that has ever been built. And our entire team took the last many weeks and we've compressed all the knowledge that we have to give you one single playbook that is the operating manual for the real estate industry. You will not find this anywhere else, and we're so grateful to give it to you. It's completely open source. You can have this for you and for your use. So if you are an agent, a broker, a team leader, a manager, and you don't have this, I would give this to your agents so that they can use it, and then they can ask you questions based on all of it. All right, so that's number one, which we call the Buyer Agent Navigator. Number two, you're going to see this video on the site, and this video is just an intro video, but what's going to happen on this video, a lot of you asked for the replay of this workshop. We're going to take the replay of this workshop and put it on the site so that you have full access to the replay of this workshop completely, right? So again, completely free. We're going to put the replay on this overall. So that's number two. Here's number three. We have the post-settlement rule set. So if you have forgotten any of the rules, we've broken down all the rules for you in this entire process. Right? Here's number four. I want to give a big shout out to our state brokers. We broke down all the state questions and we have two things for you. I gave you the 26 scenarios that we actually did, which is our Google Drive, but I actually sat down and I recorded the answers to all the questions. So I sat down with Jason Lopez, our designated broker in the state of California. I sat down with Eric Axelson, our designated broker in New Jersey. And I sat down with Ms. Rebecca Redmond, our state broker in Florida. And I broke down an answer to all the questions from the book. Right? So if you watch this video, you will have all the answers to all the questions from Rebecca and Eric and Jason's state perspectives. You may need to tweak it for your state, but we've built all of this for you, both the workbook and the answers. So these are all live for you right now, right? I'm not done yet. Keep going here. So a couple of things. Tomorrow, Drew Thompson and I are doing the NAR objection workshop, where we're going to go through how you actually explain all of this to buyers and sellers and all the objections therefore. So you're welcome to join. It's completely open source to you. You're welcome to join us. I also want to tell you that for real agents, the real buyer toolkit and the seller toolkit are already updated. So if you know, here's a real listing buyer toolkit. I'm going to go into the toolkit right now. If I scroll down, what you're going to notice is that we have the post NAR settlement section that I already pre-built for you. We already pre-built the trainings on decoupling of compensation, how you actually explain this to a buyer, how you actually explain this to a seller. So we've already built this for you. It is right now available to you. The buyer book and the listing books are already live in Real Academy right now, and you're going to be able to get the listing and the buyer toolkits with updated NAR material that are already live right now. Cool. Last but not least, I also shared with you the client-facing explainer video. You can get that access to that right here, and the download the PDF guide. So you can get all the real estate consumer guide as well. I want to give you all a gift that I think you probably should deserve right now, which is a few months ago, we did a home buyer masterclass for our consumer clients. Like, we took them through what it takes to buy a home in this market. And in this video, you will see the full breakdown of the entire home buyer masterclass that I did, that you can take all the learnings, all the tools, all the materials, all the language, everything, and you can do it for your own clients as well. So we're completely open sourcing everything for you. That way you also know how to actually talk to clients in this process. This whole piece is all hosted on the realbuyerplaybook.com. It is probably the most comprehensive playbook that you will get for buyers in today's marketplace. Additional resources, we broke down the key additional resources that you need. I want to show you one of these specifically, which is the replay of all the live real calls. So over the last week and going forward, we've done a lot of NAR coffee and questions recordings. So every replay of every call is already recorded here, and you can access that at your convenience. We completely open source the whole thing for you. Okay, so everything in here is available at the realbuyerplaybook.com. If I were you, I would go ahead and download this buyer agent navigator, and you should be in a pretty good spot to handle all of this. So let me pause. Probably need a drink. I wanna share something super important, and that is, let me take you through the last 1 minute I have for you, right? Which is, I gave you the Real Buyer Playbook. So what's coming up for you is we have the objection handling and talk track workshop tomorrow, and for the rest of the month of August, you will see a full schedule of role play sessions and coffee talks with us. Again, it's completely open to everybody, and it's our job to help you, support you. It's open to everybody overall. Okay, but let me. Is it okay? Is it okay? Can you just give me a 5 in the chat? A 5 in the chat if I can give you 5 important reminders before we go. All right, let me give you 5 super important reminders before we go. All right, Dre would be proud of me. I actually stayed on time. 5 important reminders before we go. Reminder number 1 is you have a choice to make right now. And the choice to make right now is this. Do you want to be the resentful kind with all the information that's been presented to you? Do you want to be hopeful, or do you want to be skillful? Right? That's what you should ask yourself right now. Number 1. Here is lesson number 2. Lesson number 2 is everything that we have talked about today, you don't have to go searching for the links. It is all available at the realbuyerplaybook.com. It is the most comprehensive buyer playbook that has ever been built in the real estate industry. And I am for all that I've seen. So I'm excited to share that with you. I'm excited to give it all to you. All that we would ask you to do is this. If you could, as a thank you to our team, not to me, as a thank you to our team and to lift our industry up, if you could do anything for us, it would just be to share this with people that you meet, share this with your team, share this online, just let other people see this, because we are not capturing anything. We're giving everything away for free, right? Because we want you all to have the right information. Realbuyerplaybook.com. Please do share it. Here's lesson number 3. I would love for you to take a picture of this. Our clients are at a major disadvantage if we don't know the rules of the game or we don't have the skills to help them. This is not about us getting more commission. This is not about us signing a buyer rep agreement. This is not about us being extinct. That's got nothing to do with that. We have a fiduciary responsibility, which is putting our clients' need ahead of us. And the only way we can do that if we know the new rule set that's available to us, right? Our clients are at a major disadvantage if we don't know the rules of the game or don't have the skills to help them. Please know that. Here's takeaway number 4. Anytime you're unsure about something, please do use the ultimate diagnostic filter. Hey, how does it look for optics? How does it look for semantics? How does it look for mechanics? Optics is how it looks. Semantics is how it's worded. Mechanics is how it's practiced. We need to have full alignment between optics, semantics, and mechanics, which is why broker-to-broker compensation does not fit that thing. Do everything that you can to avoid the rocks while you get to the beach. All right. And here's last but not least. I don't know how to tell you this, but we are required to lead with grace. This is the most complex bundle of changes in our industry in our lifetime. We are required to lead with grace. You see somebody that is doing something wrong, advise them, be kind to them, support them. You see somebody that is asking a tough question in a Facebook group, stop the berating, stop the passive aggressive stuff. In fact, don't even post in those groups if you're going to stir the pot. It is our job to be kind. It is our job to be thoughtful. It's our job to lead with grace. The only way we get through these massive complexity of changes over the next few months is if we all lead with grace. You're going to see fines, changes, people talking about this stuff. Come back to this over and over if you'd like. Come to our sessions, but please, please, please know this. Please lead with grace. Hey, on behalf of the entire Real team, I got to give a big shout out to my partner, Alex Lumpkin, who is our chief counsel. And without her, I would not be able to do any of this. Entire marketing and operations team who pulled all of this together. And most importantly, our state brokers, our state and provincial brokers. I'm so grateful for you. You are shining stars in our world. You are the CEOs of your state. You have helped us so much to guide this entire process. Without you, we will not be able to navigate this. And I'm so grateful for you, so grateful to be partners with you. And I know our agents are as well. So thank you so much for supporting us as we lead our agents through this complexity overall. But please, please, please remember, we must lead with grace. I appreciate you all so much. We'll stick around for a minute. If you have questions, thoughts, please put them in the chat. If we don't get to it, we'll find a way to get to it. realbuyerplaybook.com. All we ask is that you share it so that you and your team and your brokerages can have a good benefit from all of this. I appreciate you all so much. We'll stick around for a minute. We must lead with grace. Cool. Hey, thank you all, everybody. Appreciate you. Awesome. Thank you. Right on time. We will take this moment to stop recording. That way we can say anything else that we want. Cool. See, now you can say anything that you want. All right. Hey, if you feel good about this process, this is good. Hey, one thing that I would appreciate if you're on, do me a favor, take a picture, tag us or what have you. That would be cool because if you tag me, then I'm in your feed more and you're in my feed more, so I'll see more of your stuff. So please share this. We are super grateful to build the ultimate operating manual for the